Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first in the series of WatchGuard Detectives, where we'll be highlighting the WatchGuard Firebox, overall Firebox and security solution, and really putting a highlight on our SD-WAN technology. By way of introduction, my name's Jon-Marc Wilkinson, and I'm Sales Director for UK and Ireland. In terms of where I've come from and what I've done, I've been with WatchGuard now for coming on for 10 years, but I've been in the industry for around 25 years, working for various levels of the channel, whether it be with the vendor, as I am now, distribution, at reseller. So I have been selling to across the channel and especially to customers such as yourselves. Hopefully this should provide an insight into the business benefits of what you can expect from WatchGuard rather than just a really high level pitch. But let me just give you a quick overview about our relationship with ADM Computing. I think it's really important that as part of your relationship with any of our channel partners, they need to be extremely technical and competent when it comes to commercials. ADM are and have been our very first fully certified and sales and technically certified partner in the UK and Ireland. That means not only do they have skill sets for the firewalling product that we have, but are completely across the board for our wireless and our endpoint authentication products. It's also important that a partner that you choose, such as ADM, are not just technical for WatchGuard, but technical across the board. And certainly when we look at ADM and why we have such a great relationship with ADM and a long-standing relationship, it's because of their technical expertise with multiple products. One of their key technology products and one of their key relationships is with Microsoft, of which they're a gold partner, as you can see here, across many of their different technologies and across many of their different solutions. Again, I'm Jon-Marc Wilkinson, and today we will take you through, again, security, who is WatchGuard, and a little focus on SD-WAN and why it's important for you. So what do we do? Who are we? So WatchGuard philosophy is three key pillars. One is we provide what we call intelligent protection. That's looking at basic technologies and basic security along the lines of web filtering, mail filtering, along with advanced levels of protection when it comes to zero-day filtering, looking at heuristic blocking of various advanced threats that we are seeing more and more prevalently in this industry. In fact, when I looked at a threat landscape report, which you can do yourselves by going to www.secplicity.org, which is our threat researchers website, I actually saw that 92% of all threats out there, of all malware threats out there that we've seen on our devices are what we call zero day. That means you have to have a heuristic, non-signature based solution to protect you. So we have intelligent protection driven by those behavioral scanners and also driven by AI scanners with the relationships we have with various vendors, and we'll talk about those in a moment. Because we're dealing with, and it's very important at this stage, we set out our stall and say, in terms of market, we focus on the mid-market. And what does the mid-market mean? The mid-market means anywhere from an SMB company from sort of 25 users up to a couple of thousand users, really with a sweet spot around the 50 to 250 mark. We realise that those types of companies, maybe such as yourselves, don't have a huge technology staff available. Therefore, you're dealing with finite resources that need to have an easy to manage solution, and that is something that WatchGuard will provide you. We also need, and you also need, to be able to look and report on what's happening in your infrastructure. You need to be able to see what threats are happening on the network. You need to be able to see who's looking at what, where, when on the internet, basically to provide very simple and visual reports, which again, we provide you free of charge with our WatchGuard Dimension server, and we'll come and talk about that in a moment. So it's 3 pillars that with the key tagline is smart security simply done. So it's bringing our security in a very simple way that's easy to manage at a cost-effective price point. Of course, one of the key things with WatchGuard and a really important point with WatchGuard is we've been around for over 20 years. If you haven't heard about WatchGuard or you haven't used WatchGuard, it's always important, and we always make it clear that we've been around for so long now and purely security driven. We've also been, it's also important that we need to make clear that we are channel only company. So we only work with companies such as ADM to help you fulfill. So you won't be having to talk to us directly, but we always work via our channel partners. We've got global support structures out there. We service the globe, and we've got over 700 employees and growing. And one of the key factors I always like to say here is that we've got probably over 1 million boxes deployed in the world, which enables us to be very secure through the ability to see those threats coming. But those 1 million boxes come from over 80,000 customers. So we do have a lot of customers, a lot of boxes, a lot of technology and information that we can reference and refer to help you secure your environment. One of the key facts with WatchGuard security is, again, we mentioned mid-market, but when we look at the threats that are affecting the mid-market or the SMB, they're the same threats that are going to be affecting enterprise companies such as HSBC, British Airways, large financial and chemical and utility companies. There's no such thing as a WannaCry Lite. There's no such thing as a CryptoLocker Lite or a CryptoLocker SMB version. It's the same level of threat that is applicable to a nation state attack to an enterprise company that is going to affect a mid-market SMB company. The trouble there is that generally enterprise level solutions and enterprise level security has an enterprise level price tag. And that's something we've been very careful to avoid. So when you partner with ADM and when you partner with WatchGuard, you will not only take on a cost-effective solution, but that cost-effective solution will have market-leading, enterprise-leading products that will enable you to defend against those enterprise-level threats that are out there and that we're seeing, such as Petra, such as CryptoLocker, such as WannaCry. We will protect you against that, again, at an SMB price point. But we'll come on to talk about that in a moment again. In terms of the products that we provide to market, well, people know us for our red firewalling appliances. We have 2 types of main firewall ranges, our T series and our M series. Our T series are our tabletop devices, and our M series are rack mount devices. The higher the user count, the bigger box you require in terms of appliance range. As you see, we go from T15, which you'd really use for a 5-user, 10-user deployment, up to an M5600, which can actually deal with over 10,000 users with 60 gig throughputs. So we do cater for a wide range, and I think the key word there is scalable. Our products are scalable, so we can move with you as your business grows and your requirements grow, not only in terms of user counts and people that you're having to service in your industry, but in terms of bandwidth requirements, which I'll come on to talk about, which is very relevant when we start thinking about SD-WAN. Not only do we provide firewalls, which have layered across their multiple security solutions that we'll talk to, we also provide virtual fireboxes. So those virtual fireboxes can sit on VMware or Hyper-V environment, but they can also sit in the public cloud with your Azure and AWS environments. So again, there's flexibility there if you have decided to move workloads off into the cloud that you do need to secure. We've recently, over the last 4 to 5 years, again, we said we've been around for 20. We've now got wireless access points that we can bring into your industry, into your business, and we also have multi-factor authentication as well. But really, for this presentation, we want to focus on the firewall. We mentioned the security portfolio, and the key thing with WatchGuard is we provide, as we've said in the previous slide, enterprise solutions for the SMB market. So what do we mean by that? Well, what we mean by that is layered across our firewall appliance, we have multiple different security solutions that will block certain threats. To name but a few, we have URL filtering, we have spam blocking, and we have IPS. And you may say, well, what's unique and what's enterprise about WatchGuard web blocking? And what's unique about WatchGuard AV? Well, what's unique about WatchGuard AV and WatchGuard URL filtering is that we partner with what we call best of breed solutions. So actually our URL filter, our URL database that we use is based upon and uses WebSense's, now called ForcePoint's, Triton database. We're the only firewall that can bring that level of URL filtering to the mid-market. In terms of antivirus, we have 2 antiviruses on box. We have either Bitdefender that we use, or we have Silence. And you remember we said that 92% of all malware that we saw was 0-day. It's only technologies such as Silence that base their filtering on behavioral based filtering that will be able to stop those 0-day, primarily because there's no signatures available for them. We also have things along the line, or technologies that we can bring to market, such as DNS level filtering that will stop phishing attacks, and various other types of filtering services. We won't go through them all, but needless to say, there are multiple filtering solutions we can provide to you, because the importance of WatchGuard is that we realize, as I'm sure you do, is that not one security solution will stop all threats. We need to provide our customers a layered security solution, a layered perimeter firewall that will enable you to protect against multiple threats. Now, as you will probably be aware, over the last few years, and we always in the IT industry have some sort of key phrases and key technologies that come to the fore. Maybe it was application control many years ago. Maybe it was cloud computing that always seems to be around, and actually is a really big a networking solution at the moment that people are actually adopting. But one of the key things that we've seen in the last few years from various different vendors is SD-WAN or software-defined networking. Now, software-defined networking came about for a number of reasons, but actually it's all about improving performance on the network via looking at the best route to send the traffic to gain the best, to enable the best performance for your end users. Now, this is something we've been doing for years, and although we didn't term it as SD-WAN, and yes, we've brought new technologies that we've developed over the last couple of years, we really have been doing this through multi-WAN, being able to fail between or utilize multiple WAN links, or we've been able to put quality control on bandwidth, so we can actually utilize bandwidth throttling for certain key applications. But we'll talk about that more in a moment. I'll come on to SD-WAN soon, but just to finish off the WatchGuard part of the discussion in terms of the Firebox. What's key with WatchGuard And what's key, I'm sure, for you is to prove to the people that are purchasing these solutions that it's actually doing what it says. Now, with WatchGuard Dimension, we're able to provide you, the customer, with actionable visibility. Now, what do I mean? What I mean, this is a report that we are able to provide to you, login reporting server that will very easily be able to identify who is doing what on the network. So maybe you've got a problem user, maybe you just want to see what your users are doing and what they're doing at certain times of day and what type of websites they're visiting, to maybe see why people aren't productive, or if people are productive, why they're productive. We're able to identify threats and whether your policies are working. And the very key thing for us is that we provide this to you as our customers free of charge. There is no charge for WatchGuard Dimension because we believe this is so important for you as a customer to be able to provision correctly our network solution, but more importantly, to be able to drive your business in the right way in terms of which policies and how to configure the appliance correctly. We've mentioned these before, but just again to go over, we've got 2 levels of security that we deploy onto the boxes. And when you talk to ADM, rather than wanting, you can have all the security solutions, but we split them into 2 levels. One is called fundamental and one is called advanced. Now, what do we mean by that? Fundamental is what we see as it's being able to provide you as the customer with a basic level of security. URL filtering, basic antivirus, spam blocker. Those are the things that inherently you would use as a standard. Advanced security, and again, do speak to ADM about this, will provide you with those more advanced features that will be able to defend against things like the 0-day outbreaks. Now, to get all of these solutions in one package, we provide our customers with what we call total security. And total security provides all of this in one license bundle, and will also, anything that we bring out that's new specifically for the Firebox, so if we bring a new solution or a new feature, you will get that as part of the contract for whether you take it for 1 or 3 years. So if we bring out 3 new features, you will get those features as part and parcel of the total security solution. And why? Because the market is forever changing, threats are becoming ever more advanced, and therefore you as customers need to be assured that your investment in WatchGuard isn't just a one-off, in terms of you will have to keep adding one-off payments to it, but in theory is a one-off, because over the 3-year period you won't have to add any further financials to it or any further orders, because with total security you will get everything under one bundle. So what is SD-WAN? So SD-WAN, as we've mentioned, and is called software-defined networking. So the key things that we need to remember with SD-WAN is the reason it's come to the fore is because WAN, or wide area network technology or networking, has become more and more complex, and I'll explain that in a moment. Because WAN networking has become more complex, it's raised costs. Because it's become more resource hungry. More users are trying to access more different types of resources, whether they be cloud-based or different types of applications on the network, whether they're home working, whether there's multiple branch offices. It's become, and what we mean by resource hungry, it may need more and more resources in terms of more powerful servers to drive it, or if you've offloaded your workloads to the cloud, you may need bigger and bigger WAN links or broadband connectivity links to try and power this, due to the fact that your users here may be suggesting that actually I can't get access to my business critical applications. When I try and access Salesforce, when I try to get to the cloud, when I try to use Dropbox Business Edition or various Microsoft applications, they're not performing as I want. And that's where SD-WAN comes into play. But the most important thing that I will say is SD-WAN is this. You may already have it. Partnering with ADM, I'm sure they've done a great job of providing you a WatchGuard solution, but more importantly, providing you with a total security package. Now, even if you don't have total security, we believe SD-WAN is so important, you will get this solution as part and parcel of just our standard firewalls, because it's just part of networking. So what the important thing to say here is, you do not need with WatchGuard to have to buy a firewall and a WatchGuard SD-WAN appliance, because they're bundled together. And if you've already got WatchGuard, you've already got SD-WAN. So all you need to do is speak to ADM, speak to their technical team or their commercial team, and get them to enable it for you. It's as simple as that. But why does SD-WAN come to the fore? Well, it's come to the fore because networking, as I'm sure you know, used to be so simple. We had a data center or a main head office with various servers that hosted your applications, and then suddenly we got various remote sites with the internet. And so the branch office simply connected to the data center, got the applications it required, and everything was good in the world and everything was happy. Now, WAN complexity has come to the fore primarily because the network has become more complex. So as I said before, we used to have a very simple structure whereby we had a head office and maybe we had a branch office. Very, very simple. The head office, or maybe we'll call it the data center, would have the key applications stored on their servers. The branch office would quite easily connect through the internet or connect directly to the data center to drag down those applications. It seems a very simple way forward. What we may have done, and maybe I should have put two separate arrows, of course, there are multiple different software providers or data connectivity providers, whether it's BT or Virgin or Zen Internet, or probably back then, cable and wireless. So we could potentially work between different WAN providers and multi-WAN failovers, which we've always done. What then happened is the internet, as we got more and more users and more sites, decided, well, I'll tell you what, let's actually use the internet in a different way. Let's split it out. And we'll split it out in the following ways. We'll create either public or public or private clouds, or maybe even a hybrid cloud. What do we mean by that? So a public cloud, we might be using things along the lines of Azure or AWS, whereby you may offload your workloads to gain access to the power of their servers, or you might use your own private cloud, whereby you virtualize it, or you host some applications in there that you want your users to get hold of, or maybe a mixture of both. There's so many different ways we can use it, using the internet as we always did, but utilizing it via different cloud technologies. But then it didn't just stop there. You may think, well, okay, that's fine. But then we had different people wanting to connect. You've got home users, and then we've got the always loved bring your own device, which can be complicated because we may have contractors coming into the environment and we may be saying, oh crikey, do I want to let them on? Do I not want to let them on? If I let them on, they still need to get access to all the resources. If I let them on, they may be a semi-permanent member of staff, but they still need to have a good experience connecting into my network. And then again, there's so many different ways they can connect to various applications. And as we can see, this is all becoming very complicated, depending on where the user's based, depending on what applications they need to get hold of, will depend on what way they try to traverse the internet to get to the applications. Not all of those links are going to be up all the time. Not all of those VPNs are going to be stable. Not all of maybe the data line from BT isn't as strong as the data line that's provided by Virgin, but you've decided BT is your primary, Virgin's the secondary, or maybe vice versa. We need to come up with some way and some solution, obviously SD-WAN, of making sense of this all. But actually, to add to that, then we had the wonderful world of smartphone that came in, and everyone said, well, actually, I not only want to connect to everything from my laptop, from my desktop, now I've got a smartphone I want to run around with, and I still want to connect to everything, and I still want to have a great experience wherever I am, internet cafe, airport, coffee shop, on-site, off-site. We all need to have a great experience. And therefore SD-WAN came to the fore. And in a very, very simple way, SD-WAN sits in the middle, or at least sits on your WatchGuard device, and is a guide, and actually says once the user requests to go to either a particular cloud due to a workload being hosted there, or maybe to a particular application that hosted into the cloud, or maybe they still want to go to the data center, SD-WAN will decide and determine which route, which link is the most secure and is the most, will enable the best experience in terms of performance. So it's very simple. If you have multiple WANs or accessing multiple clouds with multiple users, multiple locations, SD-WAN is certainly something that you want to be looking at to enable a positive experience for not only the sites, the locations, but for the users. Let's think of some scenarios. It could be a retail store whereby you've got a coffee shop, and getting people in, one of the attractions is while somebody's shopping, you want to sit in the coffee shop, have a coffee, surf the internet. You want a good experience. It could be a hotel. You want a good experience. Could just be a remote worker coming in to work at a different site. They want a good experience. Good experience enables productivity. Productivity enables revenue equals success. Success results in investment to your company. So SD-WAN is something very simple that we've been using for years, whether it's multi-WAN failover, whether it's just quadding of certain key applications to ensure that your business critical apps you can get access to, while maybe those other apps in the organization, XYZ social media apps, you may not require access to. That is all part of the WatchGuard solution. So as the previous slide said, you may have it, speak to ADM, just turn it on. It's something we can also give you guidance upon. So on some of our documentations that we'll make available at the end of this, there'll be a little scoring chart that you can go through and fill out, and it will determine whether you actually need SD-WAN or not. Of course, again, use ADM for guidance, but it's something that you could use independently to make your own assessment. So in terms of SD-WAN, it's worth saying, and it's all, let's not hide away from the sort of elephant in the room. There are multiple ways you could get SD-WAN. So there are SD-WAN providers, people like Silver Peak and Big Leaf. They will have certain features that maybe we don't have, but ultimately we have the majority of the features, which the next slide will show you. But there are those independent SD-WAN providers that will provide a good service. We won't lie and say they provide an awful service. They don't. But it will require an extra investment and another appliance sat in the data center. Or you can have the security providers such as us and our other competitors out there in the marketplace that don't just provide secure firewalls, but that will also provide SD-WAN capabilities. And the key thing there that we've said throughout the presentation, there's no extra cost. So of course, if costs are important at this moment in time due to the economy, it's something, if you're a WatchGuard customer or not a WatchGuard customer, you should certainly think about. And then ISPs, a lot of ISPs are jumping on the bandwagon, but the irony here is that a number of the ISPs have already said to their customers with multiple sites and large WAN infrastructures that you have to go through to a MPLS network. And now they're saying, well, actually, maybe you should go to an SD-WAN network. So a little bit of flip-flopping, yo-yoing between solutions, which I would say, well, are you then going to say, go to this next solution? So ultimately, there are multiple providers. If we focus on two, the security providers such as ourselves and SD-WAN providers, if you look in green, we can perform the majority of the functions that an SD-WAN provider, and certainly we feel from a mid-market perspective, we provide everything that our customers require. But in addition to just SD-WAN networking, we can provide, as we said right at the start of the presentation, advanced security services and advanced malware detection. That it's great if you have a very productive, highly performing WAN, but ultimately all that could be doing is firing security threats across the network at a faster and faster rate. You therefore need something core to that network that is securing those threats and preventing them from pivoting across the network. So in summary, WatchGuard Fireware provides, as we've said, a combined security with SD-WAN appliance. We're providing you, the mid-market SMB customer, with an enterprise class product at an SMB mid-market price point. The reason we're doing that is because threats do not distinguish between an enterprise state attack and an attack on an estate agent or an attack on a retail store. It's the same level of attack, and therefore you need enterprise level solutions, but not pay enterprise level pricing. WatchGuard and ADM provide, and I think this is key to your venture and your security journey that you come on hopefully with WatchGuard. We would implore you to use a WatchGuard One partner, and most importantly, we would implore you to use ADM. As I said before at the start of the presentation, ADM were our first UK and Ireland reseller partner to take on and pass, both from a commercial and a technology standpoint, across our entire portfolio. They were our first. They not only have expertise in WatchGuard, but more importantly, from your perspective, the ability to help integrate with your existing solutions, your Microsoft estate, your switch and routing network, your other security products, your wireless network. So the strength, I believe, is the strength of bundling the skill set of WatchGuard and ADM, and the strength of bundling WatchGuard secure services with WatchGuard SD-WAN appliance. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for joining us on the first of the WatchGuard Detectives webinar series. Hopefully, and I'm sure we'll do more, maybe later this year, certainly early in 2020. But if there's any questions, I do ask you to ask them via the chat function. I know you all know how it works, because when we went down, we had a plethora of comments stating that we had gone down. And with that, I do apologise that we had some issues, but again, I think it really does show the strength of the ADM relationship that we're able to get the webinar back up and running as they would your network. So with that, I want to say thank you very much, and I'm going to end the presentation there. So without further ado, goodbye.